Welcome back to Murder on Record, where every case is etched in blood and the truth is buried in the fine print. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we dig through the dusty files, the overlooked evidence, and the whispered testimonies to bring long-forgotten crimes back into the light. Today, we're diving deep into a particularly horrific crime that occurred in Phoenix, Arizona back in 2009, the torture murder of Terry Neely.
Yeah, this case, it really stands out, even, in the world of true crime, just the sheer brutality.
Absolutely, and the victim's vulnerability adds another dimension.
Definitely. Terry Neely, he was 46, paraplegic, living in an assisted care facility. Just incredibly vulnerable.
It makes what happened even more, well, horrifying.
It does. It really highlights how predators can target those who can't easily defend themselves.
And the perpetrator, Angela Simpson, she was 36 at the time.
Right. And often described pretty consistently as a remorseless psychopath.
She also had a prior conviction, didn't she? Armed robbery.
She did, yeah. Which, shows a history of serious crime, but maybe doesn't fully prepare you for the level of violence in this case.
Not at all. So let's look at the timeline. It's pretty compressed and awful.
Yeah.
August 2nd, 2009.
That's when Neely leaves his care facility with Simpson.
Okay. And then for the next 3 days, August 2nd to the 5th.
Yeah, those 3 days. That's when the torture happened. In a Phoenix apartment, it was prolonged, just horrific abuse.
The details are hard to even talk about. Beaten with a tire iron.
Stabbed something like 50 times.
50 times.
Yeah.
And the nail.
Yeah, a 3-inch nail hammered into his skull. They found it during the autopsy.
God. And extracting teeth. Forcing him to watch himself in a mirror.
That mirror detail is...
Yeah.
It's something else. It speaks to a level of psychological cruelty that's just chilling. It's not just about physical pain.
No, it's terror. Pure terror. And finally, strangulation with a PV cord.
That's how it ended, after 3 days of that.
Then, August 5th, firefighters make the discovery.
Right. They find his remains, charred, dismembered, in a trash bin. Fingerprints confirmed it was Terry Neely.
Just ghastly. And Simpson, she was already in jail.
Yeah, by later that month, August 2009, she was already picked up on that armed robbery charge. And while she was in custody, she confessed.
Confessed to the murder.
To everything. Then came the indictment in 2010, first-degree murder, kidnapping.
And she eventually pleaded guilty.
She did. March 22nd, 2012. Took a plea deal, got life plus 14 years.
And there's someone else involved, you mentioned, Edward McFarland.
Right, Edward McFarland.
Yeah.
His involvement wasn't in the torture itself, but in the aftermath.
What was his role exactly?
He was charged with concealing the body, hindering prosecution, basically helping Simpson try to cover it up.
So he's definitely part of the story, even if not the main perpetrator.
Absolutely. His actions helped her, after the fact.
Let's talk evidence. What did investigators find?
Well, it was pretty clear-cut in some ways. Bloodstains in Simpson's apartment, they matched Neely. Left no doubt where the violence happened. And Neely's wheelchair was found near McFarland's home. That links him to the disposal.
Right. Connects those dots.
Then you have Simpson's own confession. Reportedly very graphic, very detailed.
And delivered how? Was she remorseful?
Reports say, not at all. Cold, matter of fact. That's part of what fuels the psychopath description.
Yeah, that lack of emotion is terrifying. And the autopsy confirmed the details. The nail, the stab wounds.
It did. It corroborated the horrific methods she described.
So the what and how are brutally clear. But the why? That's where things get murky, isn't it?
That's the huge question hanging over this case. The motive.
Simpson claimed Neely was a snitch, right? That he deserved it.
Yeah, that was her justification. But investigators looked into it thoroughly.
And
found nothing. Zero basis for the claim. Seemed like she just made it up.
so not a revenge killing for snitching. Then what?
Well, that's when you start looking at the psychological angle. The term psychopath comes up a lot.
Meaning lack of empathy. Maybe getting some kind of satisfaction from it.
Potentially, yes. A lack of empathy, lack of remorse, manipulation, maybe even deriving pleasure or a sense of power from inflicting extreme pain and terror. It's a clinical construct, but it seems to fit the descriptions of her behavior.
Okay, so psychopathy might explain her capacity for this. But does it explain the intensity, the prolonged nature, the specific acts?
That's a really good point. The label gives us a framework, maybe, but it doesn't always explain the specifics. Why this victim? Why 3 days of torture? What was the exact trigger, if any?
Was it just random cruelty taken to an absolute extreme? Was there something else going on in her life? We don't really know, do we?
The available information just doesn't give us a clear answer to that. There's a disturbing gap there. It leaves you wondering about the limits or lack thereof of human cruelty when that specific psychological makeup is present.
And what about McFarlane? Why did he help?
Another unanswered question. Was he afraid of Simpson? Was he coerced? Did he share some twisted ideology? We just don't know his motivation for getting involved in concealing such a horrific crime.
His silence just adds another layer of unease to the whole thing.
Definitely. Now, this case, because of his nature, it's been featured quite a bit, especially in true crime circles.
Like that show, Signs of a Psychopath.
Exactly. It was featured there in 2023. People are fascinated and frankly disturbed by Simpson's apparent mindset and the sheer brutality. It forces a confrontation with the idea of psychopathy.
And it really underscores the vulnerability aspect we talked about earlier, Terry Neely's disability.
Right. It sparks conversations about protecting vulnerable people, about recognizing predators. His situation made him an easier target, sadly.
It's a grim reminder.
Yeah. And when you look at how it's covered, you see a range.
How so?
Well, you got the factual news reports,
Yeah.
like from the Phoenix New Times, just laying out the facts, the charges, the plea, very neutral.
Standard reporting.
Right. But then, in some podcasts or documentaries, the focus shifts more onto Simpson's demeanor, her chilling interviews.
That's where that likable monster idea comes in.
Sometimes, yeah. That phrase gets used, this paradox of someone who can maybe present a normal, even charming facade, but is capable of this. It's a really unsettling concept.
It shows how much we struggle to comprehend this kind of extreme violence, doesn't it? We try to find reasons, patterns.
But sometimes the answers aren't neat or satisfying. We're left with these really disturbing, open questions.
Like, what truly drove Angela Simpson to torture Terry Neely for 3 days? What was going through her mind?
And what made Edward McFarlane decide to help cover it up? These lingering questions are what make the case so haunting.
It's a stark look into the abyss, really. The capacity for cruelty without a clear, understandable why.
It really is. And it's crucial while we investigate these dark corners to keep the victim in mind, Terry Neely and the devastation caused, but also, to grapple with these difficult, unanswered questions about human nature.
Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes on the evidence.